Hello, everyone, and welcome to Replit 101 and Coding Helpline live today from Replit headquarters in San Francisco. Yes, I'm not sat at my normal desk with all my lovely normal lighting setup, which is why we're in a bit of a office type thing. But today we are going to go through Replit 101 and look at all the questions you've submitted for the past 2 weeks in Replit Ask, in the Discord, and in the live chat. But to get started, let's do what we normally do, and let's share a link to a REPL that we can all get stuck into and put our names in. Normally, what we do with this is we add one REPL and we send an invite link out to everybody. Now, I've got this one, which I'll just pop up on the screen for you right now. I'll just move this down a little bit. This is the one we looked at last fortnight as well, which has had a bit of a remake, a bit of a tidy up, to see if you can pop your names and details in there. I'll put the join link in the chat. Please feel free to jump into that and take that first div tag, which is lines 16 to 20, copy and paste it and place it a little bit below where you're going to add your name, your location, and the amount of coding experience you've got. Whilst people have a go at that, let's look at what's new on Replit this week and what's been happening. Well, since last time I saw you, we've added about 2 more weeks of content to the 100 days of code. So we're all the way up now to about day 35. So if you've fallen behind in that, there's plenty of opportunity to catch up. We are well on our way to building all 100 days of content, and we hope to be finished with that before the end of the year, which would line up to 1 lesson a day, which probably makes sense for 100 days of code. We also, in the last fortnight, did some pretty cool stuff. We launched the Community Hub, which is a new place on Replit where you can go and you can see all the events that are coming up in the community. That's a brilliant place if you've not been there before, because it'll let you see live streams like this, as well as all the events that our brilliant reps are running. Now, if you like this live content, the reps are doing some amazing stuff on the weekends, and they are hosting things like Introduction to PHP, mini game jams, and a bunch of other things. The Introduction to PHP is a little bit close to my heart, so it's nice to have that. Now, not seeing many people in the live today, which is no problem with that, but it does mean that we might move on a little bit from our starter activities. So if you are joining late, please do jump in and say hello in the link that I've shared in the chat. I'm going to start today by going through some of the questions that have been posted to the live chat in advance of today's session. Some of these are not necessarily programming questions, but are interesting nonetheless. And we've got a bunch of questions from Arnaban, which apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name, but you've said, how do you become good at professional level in Python? Well, first of all, one of the first things I do is take the 100 days of code, but I would say that, wouldn't I? But no, the main thing to get proficient to a professional level in Python is to try and build independent projects. Now, there's nothing like that for extending your skill set, but more importantly, having a portfolio of things that you can show to potential employers, or if you're going into further studies, to showing to people in interview panels and things like that. One of the most important things to get good at a professional level is to build real things, build things you want to have, things that you want to see in the world. So if you've got an idea for an app or a program or a website that you'd like to build, it's well worth trying to build that in Python. Once you've done the initial sort of 100 days of code usual challenge, getting up to a level of proficiency with the basic constructs, things like loops, lists, dictionaries, and even file storage, database manipulation and stuff like that. All of this will be available in the 100 days of code as it comes. But as you get those skills, the important thing is to go and try and implement them somewhere else. Once you've understood it in one context, put it somewhere else. Use it in the next project you build. And by doing that, you'll find that you're able to extend your knowledge to a more professional level. And this sort of chimes up with this one, which is how to get a job. One of the key things is, aside from the usual stuff, which is specific coding interviews, specific sorts of questions that you might get in interviews, is getting yourself noticed by recruiters and getting yourself in a position where people that can employ you are interested. And by far, one of the most important ways of doing that is to build up a portfolio of your work. So as a software engineer, as a developer, it's almost as important to have a portfolio as it is if you were an artist and you were building content to show off your artistic skills. You're trying to show off the breadth and the depth of your technical skills. So having a portfolio, I mean, commonly hosted on something like GitHub, but to be perfectly honest, the best way nowadays would be to have your Replit profile page linked up with as many different well-named, well-published REPLs as you possibly can to show the diverse nature of the types of work that you do and the level to which you can do it. If you can build up your portfolio in that way, you can't really go wrong for starting to get noticed by recruiters. And then there are a million websites on cracking the coding interview, and depending on the type of company you might be hired for, there are probably better things to look at there. But certainly the most important thing is to have the experience and the wealth, the variety of portfolio code that you can. Now, Anaban has given us a load of questions that we'll come back to in a little bit. Please do feel free if you're watching live to put any comments, any questions in the chat, and I'll prioritize my live chat people. But whilst we're waiting for people to jump on, we are going to take a quick look at some of the archive questions that have come up in the last fortnight. So here's a question from REPL Ask. If you don't know where REPL Ask is our question and answer community space, which is all accessible from the community page on Replit. Ask.replit.com will let you ask questions generally, or in this case, about specific parts of 100 days of code. Here's a question from Himataya, which says, I'll go up to the top, that he's new to coding and he's having some trouble with some errors here. Let's pull that to full screen and see what problem we have. Now, it's worth saying at this point, if you get an error in any of your code and you'd like somebody on Replit to take a look at it, it is well worth giving a sharing link. Now, that is not an invite link, that is a sharing link, that's a different thing. Your invite link will let people edit your code. Your sharing link, which is just the URL of your REPL, as long as that REPL is public, you can share anywhere and people can go and see your code. By far, the biggest question we get time after time after time when somebody is asking for help is to send a link to their REPL. And please do that, because as you can see here, this person would have had a much, much easier time had they given us the link to the code. But this is the day 8 challenge. This is the day where we're dealing with a bunch of ELIFs, and the vast majority of this code is really, really good. But you can see there's a syntax error that says it's on line 13. Now, if you look at the bit that's circled, you can pretty much see what the problem is. And I hope that many of you in the audience today will be looking at that and immediately jumping to the fact that line 13 is missing the closing quote as well as the closing bracket or parenthesis. This is a very common problem. And the issue a lot of the time is if you forget this, that Python will point you to the next line down as having the problem with it. So it's very, very straightforward to fix this problem. And that would be on the end of line 13 to add in the closing quote and add in the closing parenthesis. This is probably one of the most common problems we get in programming. And let's be honest, those of us that know how to program, we make this mistake all the time. Missing closing brackets, closing symbols, closing parentheses, closing quotes. It's one of the most common things that people forget to do. And therefore, you should be on your guard when you are developing software, that you're not making these mistakes as well. Hopefully that was a nice, easy fix there. And you'll see that it's not just me making these corrections and helping out, but people in the ask.replit.com are also solving those problems for you. So if you do want to submit questions, they don't have to wait until the following fortnight to be picked up by me and talked about live. Okay. Next question then. I see there's a bit of stuff going on the chat, so let me take a quick look at that. The link is open in the web view. Okay, Aniban, I'll come back to this in a second. I'll just star those questions and we'll come back and have a look at what's going on with that in a moment. Okay, so let's have a look at this next question, which has been in the inbox this fortnight. Now, this is, I think, a particularly interesting question because it is really commonly asked, but hasn't really got a technical solution just yet. And NYMOS, we'll go for NEMOS, says that they don't know English very well, they're making their first steps. Sometimes the British confuses him. It confuses a lot of people, I do apologize. But who checks the exercises when they're done? Now, this is, of course, in 100 Days of Code, and 100 Days of Code is designed to be a self-study program. So the actual answer is, just as Ethan said here, nobody checks it. If it runs and it works as you think it should, you can mark that lesson as complete, and you can tell us that you've done it. We aren't checking your work here. We're not making sure that what you've done is perfect. We're letting you make that decision for yourself. But one of the interesting and the important things about 100 Days of Code is that we do start from about day 27 to give you not only text-based solutions, but videos of me working through the solutions as well. These are well worth watching because it's not just me sat there typing the code out perfectly first time and explaining how all the stuff should be working. It's actual video of me writing the solution for the first time. So literally, as soon as I finish recording the video for the question, I jump off and get onto recording the solution. And this is particularly useful if you're getting stuck or you're not too sure if your solution's right, because you'll see me work through everything in the real-time speed that I do, and importantly, make the mistakes that I do. Let's take a quick look at 100 Days of Code, and we'll see what I mean. So the main issue I've got with this is that in my test environment here, I'm only at day 5 of 100 Days of Code, so I do apologize. But the key thing is here, if you are confident, this is the code we wrote last week together, if you're confident the program is complete, you can check the real solution in the last page of the tutorial. So this is not the canonical perfect solution. This is an example of a solution that you could have written. You likely will have written it in a different way. There are almost an infinity of different ways of writing a program that solves that problem. So please don't be het up and stuck on the fact that it's not exactly like yours. It might be better, it might be worse, it might be more efficient, it might be less efficient. But as long as your program does what it should do, you are more than welcome to click Mark Lesson as Completed. Of course, we'd like you to share it, but then you can get on to the Learning Hub and go on with the next question. From, I think it's about day 28, let's have a look. Let me scroll down a little bit and see where that would be. So it's probably from day 27, actually. Day 27, where we're generating the health and the strength stats randomly from video game characters, is the one where I've started doing videos of the solutions. So you'll find on the last page an embedded video there where you can watch me work through those solutions. And it's well worth doing because the question about who checks the exercises, the honest answer is you do. You do. You check that your solution works and does everything that you'd like it to do. But you also do that by looking at the solution that I've given and comparing and seeing if you can learn anything from the solution that we've given you. Okay, let's come back for a few minutes to some of the live chat questions and see that we've got a few more there. Now, here's an interesting question here. Which open source can I contribute to be taken seriously? Now, the honest answer to this is anything. Any larger scale open source project, if you're committing meaningful changes, if you're putting in PRs that are meaningful and they're being added to the code base, all of that looks fantastic and allows you to be taken seriously. Now, of course, the bigger in scale and the bigger in profile of the open source project, the better. So if you contribute to something huge, then you're going to have more points, more ticks in your column than if you are contributing to a smaller project. But having said that, if you are contributing to a smaller project and you are a major contributor, or it's your project and that you're developing something really cool, that is how you get taken seriously as well. So there's no hard and fast rule, but generally speaking, what we really want to see is, if we're looking at you and seeing if you're a serious developer, is your portfolio of your projects and whatever you've contributed to. How much did you contribute? Was it meaningful? And scale the scope of that project. And if you are running the project, that also looks really, really good, because you are taking on a bunch of responsibilities there that show you that you're not just a one-note wonder. You are able to manage a project. You are able to commit code. You are able to review other people's code and combine them all together into a meaningful product that can be used by other people. It's actually quite funny how much of the internet relies on small open source projects being run by sort of 2 to 3 other people. I just want to put this up because I want to say thank you for that. I do appreciate that. It's nice to have thousands and thousands of people now taking our 100 days course, and we just hope that you get something meaningful out of that. Excuse me a second. Day 29 apparently starts with video solutions. I have got video solutions for 27 and 28 on there. If you'd forked them before, and by forked them, I mean if you clicked on them and started work on them before we launched days 29 onwards, you may have the old version of that content. If you were to delete it and refork it, you would get the new version with the video content. Although saying that, the easier way to do is to go on our YouTube channel. So go to YouTube, type Replit, have a look at our most recent uploads, and you should find videos for day 27 and 28. In fact, let's have a look at that together now, and we'll see where we go. I am, yes. Lena's in the background. Say hello to Lena, everybody.
Hi.
And we on YouTube would need to go to replit.com, and then we're going to have a look for our video. I'll see if I can find it for you, and I'll pop the link up now. So it would be day 27, I believe. Here we go. And I'll just jump onto it on YouTube, and I'll share this. So we'll ignore the adverts. I'll just very quickly play through the adverts, and we'll jump to the solution. But you can see there, if you just search for day 27 solution Replit, you get a video of me not only working through and solving the problems, but talking through my thought process as well. And that's probably one of the most powerful things. And actually, the people watching this, you can see there's 112 views on day 27 already. The number of people watching the solutions is significantly less than the people watching the original questions. Honestly, I think there's a lot of learning to be taken from the solutions, because I'm talking through the way I think. Part of learning to program is learning to think programmatically, learning to think through the problem in a computational way. And the best way to learn that is either try it yourself or watch and follow other people and how their thinking works. So there's an option there for you to go through it, and I'll pop that link in the chat if you want to go and grab day 27. Just say hi to McPark12, hello. If you do have any coding questions or any questions, please pop them in the chat and we will get onto them. So here's a question about Replit audio. Now it does say it doesn't play from the links published, but it plays when it plays directly from the console. Now this, I'm not sure where the problem is here, unfortunately, Arabam. So you may need to put some REPL links in the chat for us. Now, the thing about REPL audio is it's really, really good for adding audio to the console or to any sort of game or any interface that requires it. But it does require being turned on in a couple of places as per the documentation. So it's not just adding the code that we added in that Python program. I'll see if I can put up the docs for you now. And I'm sure you've seen in Replit at the moment that our new panes function means that you can actually bring in the docs straight into it. Let's have a look. Here we go. So Replit Audio is a really nice library built in to allow us to bring audio into our files. But there are a couple of things you might need to do. With this code in Python and you run it, you'll be prompted by your browser that some audio is being played or would you like it to play. If you say okay, it'll then start playing. Now, there's also some hidden content in the Replit, so the .replit file, which sometimes you might need to change. I can't see it in the documentation here really obviously. I may have to pull that up next time or pop it in a tweet or something. But there is a way that we can, in the .replit file, tell the program that the audio should be playing. I'll have a quick look through my REPLs while we're here and see if I can find an example of where I've done that. But it is reasonably straightforward. If I just search for audio, I might have some luck. Let's have a look. And I realize that you guys are just watching me sort of look at my computer a bit gormlessly, but yeah, sorry. So let's see if I can find it. Okay, not in there then. I'll tell you what, I'll look that up and have a look elsewhere, but do for now have a look at the documentation and see what you can do. As I said, there is a place in the Replit, sorry, the .replit file. Actually, I'll Google it, turn sound on, because it might be an obvious place. It is sometimes an easy job just to pop that line in the .replit file, and I can't see it. I might have to stop on this one because it's just a video of me looking through everything and thinking aloud to myself, but no, we'll leave it there. I will come back to that one again. In fact, I'll put it on my list of questions that I couldn't solve. So the first time in this series, there's a question I couldn't solve, and I will get the examples and come back to you. But Anirban, if you've got an example REPL and a link that you can put in the chat, we can take another look at that, or I can look at it asynchronously and we can come back to it in a fortnight's time. Please do feel free to do that. Okay, I'm going to move on to part 12 here. Question about day 3 challenge. Feel free to put it in the live chat and I'll see what I can do. Luckily, I wrote the day 3 challenge, so hopefully I can help you fix it. Hello as well, buddy. 32 minutes late isn't a problem on YouTube. You can watch it async. You can watch it again if you're desperate to watch my bald head for a bit longer. Right, okay. So the menu challenge is the same thing, but not a sentence. It just goes like taco and pepperoni, okay? So that might mean that we need to see your code then. If you wouldn't mind, Park, sharing with us the link, the easiest way to do this is in your REPL, take the address here, copy it, and come and paste it into the chat. I can then take that code and we can have a look at it together on the screen and see what we need to fix. If you can do that, we can have a look at that live in a moment. So whilst we wait for that, I'm going to jump to another one of our live chat questions. And let me see what we've got. Here's an interesting one. I'm finding it a little difficult to use Github integration to put all 100-day files in one repository through Replit. Now, I've never even thought about doing this, but this is a nice idea. The main issue you might come across is, of course, all the files are called main.py. So they would try to overwrite each other with the Github integration. McPark, there's no link there, unfortunately. Can you try and put that in the chat again, please? So as I was saying, sorry, the Github integration is really designed for a single project that you're working on. And the idea would be to pull in from the Github repo or to push the Github repo and trying to use it with multiple individual REPLs pushing to the same repo. I don't know if I've ever seen that happen. I'm sure it's possible, but it might require some customization and some changes. If anyone in the chat has ever done anything similar to that, that'd be brilliant for us to have a look at. Just once again, Park, the link is not in that last message you sent us. So if you could try that again for us, we can go and take a look at your code. Whilst we're waiting, let's have a look at one of our archived questions. And this time, we're going to take a look at this question from ask.replit.com, which is quite an interesting one. And the idea is to change case statements. I'm going to pause a second because Buddy has, I think, answered our question. It is possible to do. You could create separate folders for them. So Buddy, if you can answer this for me, does that mean that you have to move the main.py file in every REPL, or does that mean that when we're committing to GitHub, we commit to a different folder or a different branch? I've never done it this way, so I honestly don't know. I've normally maintained a single repo. But whilst we're doing that, let's have a look at this bit of code, this question. The question is, I'm new here and was trying to use the match case statement. So what's the match case statement? Well, it's a new addition to Python 3.1.0, 3.10. 3.10, which allows you basically to have a switch statement. Now, this kind of code, as it looks here, is almost a faster if-else statement, or an if and an elif. And if you've done that in 100 days, you'll know what that is. That is having a number of questions in order. Now, most of the time, these questions happen to be about the same variable. That is where something like the case statement or a switch statement, as you would normally call it in most other languages, comes in useful. It basically says, here's a variable, and this is what happens in the case that it's this is what happens in the case where it's this, and this is where it happens elsewhere. In fact, what we'll do is we'll take that code to show you how it works. Now, the issue is, of course, at the moment, if we go to Replit and we create a Python file, we are going to end up with our default most recent version of Python. If I search Python, you'll see I get a bunch of stuff. The default version of Python at the minute is something like 3.8. The case statement did not come in until 3.10, but luckily, Replit is infinitely customizable, and Coding Cactus has published a template for Python 3.10. So if we pick that and we click create, that will create a version, a complete normal Python REPL that should support this statement. Let's just check it works at the moment. So it works. And that means that if we go into here and we paste this code in, and I just try and fix it a moment because we've got some weirdness going on. So this is just an indentation problem. And we bring in the first line. That should say hello to you too, which it does. If I change that to goodbye world now, it'll say see you later. Oh, maybe I haven't, I've spelled goodbye with a W. This might be a problem for me, this spelling thing, but there we go. See you later, it's working. This case structure only worked from Python 3.10 onwards. And in fact, until recently, the syntax highlighting here wasn't even working on that particularly well because of the open source components and the nature of how new it was. If you need to use new features like this, it is as easy as looking for an existing template. However, the place where all the magic's happening is actually in this file called replit.nix. This is where we tell it what packages to bring in and what to do about it. There's a lot going on here, but the key thing is down here is that we're bringing in Python package 310. Behind the scenes, Replit is a bunch of Nix containers. And this is what allows us to be very flexible with what we can build in any template. You can construct a template that has a load of different things in it that work really well. The Python packages can be updated manually by creating a Python file, showing the hidden files, going into replit.nix and just incrementing the version numbers. But most of us don't want to fiddle with that. So using Coding Cactus's Python 3.1.0 template is good enough for me. So if you are sat there wondering how you use the new features, you're more than welcome to. Let's see, did we answer this? Oh, it did. Brilliant. Using Coding Cactus's template, you can fix it. Again, that's the beauty of REPL Ask, ask.replit.com, because you can very, very quickly ask a question and get some feedback back. Okay, let's see if we've managed to get those links in. Let's have a look. I can't see anything more from McPark with a link, unfortunately. So McPark12, if you're there, please do pop a link to your REPL for day 3, and we'll see what we can do. Let's see if we can have a look at it. Okay, Buddy's helping me out with the GitHub question. You do a different branch. If you did folders, you need to manually put them in there. That's what I thought. Because the point, I mean, what GitHub really is it's like a version control system. And the idea is it's meant to store your history of your commits and allow you to branch off and do some changes and get it back on the main branch so that many people can work together. What's the idea of pushing all the 100 days REPLs, the solutions, to a single GitHub repo is definitely possible, but might be a bit more of a manual job than you need. Interestingly, the audio is not supposed to run. Okay, so I'd love to see which REPL we're talking about there. Anaban, if you can send me a link to a REPL, it doesn't have to be in the chat. You're more than welcome to send it to me directly if you'd like to, and we can have a look at it. Let me see, I haven't got my email address. I'll pop that up on the screen for you now. If you do want to specifically email me, please email me on this email address, david.morgan@replit.com. That will come straight to me. So if you do have a question or you do have a REPL that you don't want to share with everyone else, but you want to share with me, and especially if it's like this, there's a question about HTML, question about audio with Replit audio, please send it my way. By default, it's not meant to play. It does need that permission from the browser. I'm not sure what the technical reason for that is. Buddy's saying that audio and HTML websites only play when you use it. Yeah, so I think that's the case, isn't it? I think the a modern browser technology, which a lot of this audio stuff is based on, is very security conscious. So unlike the old days of the web, when we all had Flash Player installed and things would just blare music at you and you know, run a bunch of animations in the background and frighten you, modern browsers are designed to be a bit nicer with your resources and play a bit nicer. So yeah, I can imagine that is the case. Yes, buddy, they are switch statements in Python. They're called case statements. They are from 3.10 onwards. I don't know how I feel about them, honestly. I really don't know how I feel about having case statements in Python. For those of you that are a bit more advanced or that you've been a bit around a bit longer, switch statements, as they're generally called, in this case, case statements, are a feature of most other programming languages. They weren't part of Python, which was never something I was particularly concerned about. But in most other programming languages, they are faster ways to switch between, instead of writing ifs and elses, they're faster ways of moving between those than if you were writing a bunch of those things, especially if it's only based on one variable, which lots of things tend to be. Oh, buddy, me and you were on the same wavelength there. We went straight into the Nix file. Excuse me, still coughing. Unfortunately, I haven't got my nice fancy mute button or my tech with me today because I'm in the Replit main offices. So I haven't got my lovely home studio set up with me. I think the Python implementation works very, very similarly with that audio. And I'm just having a look through the questions. There's a good chat going on. Well done, live viewers. The pride is swelling up in my chest because of the way you're interacting and helping each other. This is the Replit way. This is the Replit community way, helping each other up and seeing how it goes. Oh, we've got a question from me somehow. But Replit, if you've got a question for me, please pop it in the chat and I'll try and answer. Yeah, buddy, I think you pointed out my cough button last time, so I was getting over a chest infection last time, and it's lingered a little bit, unfortunately. I don't think the air conditioning on the plane has helped me out anymore. But sorry, part 12, if you can try it, I think we've said, if you can try it without the HTTPS bit or the HTTP bit. So let me show you how that works. Hold on. Right, here we go. We'll go into this. So if we're in our REPL, if you were just to copy that, you're going to get the entire thing. We just want the bit after the HTTPS bit. Because apparently YouTube's going to block anything with the HTTP on it. So if you just grab something like that, we might be in a better position to have a look at your REPL. And we'll see what we've got. So let's have a look. Nathan has asked us a question. He's got a website that's not aligned on mobile. Oh, okay. This is proper hardcore fixing, Nathan. I like this. So let's have a look, Nathan. Let's pull that up. How do I click on this link? Very helpfully, I'm not having much luck clicking on that link. So I'm going to manually copy it from the link you sent me, Nathan. Let's have a look. Portfolio .21. Okay, so we pull your portfolio site up, Nathan, and I've clearly mistyped that because I've ended up on a GoDaddy redirect page. I like the way this is turning out, though. I mean, he could have messaged me in Slack, but no, he's taken the opportunity to come in live and see if we can get anything fixed. Here we go. Beautiful, Nathan. So part of this is not centered. It's not aligned on mobile. So best thing to do when you're trying to work out if something's aligned on mobile, I'll zoom out a minute, Nathan, and we'll share this, everyone. Best thing to do if you want to see if something is not aligned on mobile is zoom. Zoom in until you've got something the equivalent of what it would look like on a mobile device. So everything looks centered to me there, which is interesting, isn't it? So is it to do with the cross-browser compatibility issue or a specific thing? Interestingly, centering something is quite difficult to get everything perfectly centered. So I'm going to pull this off and let's have a look on mobile. So what I really need for this is the ability to stream my camera from my phone over, but unfortunately I do have this at home with my lovely mobile office setup, but not here. So, oh, this is interesting. I think Nathan's fixed this problem himself, because let's take a look and excuse the blurriness, but look, all looks quite well aligned to me. All looks quite aligned there. Nathan, I think you fixed it, my friend. It doesn't seem to be causing a problem for me. Oh, use the dev tools and click the mobile icon. But it does seem to be working. Let's have a look. Let's bring the dev tools up. And the mobile icon here. And when you close the dev tools, of course, that just turns off. Very helpful. Right, here we go. I'll pull that back up now for everyone to see. Here we go. Yeah, Nathan, it all looks aligned to me. Seems to be all right. Oh, look at that. I know what it is. I think your picture is at a fixed width. Everything else is resizing around it, and the image is not. So what's happening here is that the image is causing the page rendering to get a bit out of whack. Have we got a maximum size on that? Let's have a look. I'm going to just inspect this with the inspector and see what we've got for the image. So we don't seem to have, let's have a look. So am I displaying this? Let me see if I can show you guys this as well. Here we go. So there we are. I love that, Nathan, by the way. I love the fact that we've got a bit of ASCII art in the code. So with the dev tools, what you can do is you can click on an individual item. And what I like to do is click on the computed button, because this tells us really what, in this case, what Chrome has seen, what it's understood and what it's put together. So there it's saying, okay, so the width of this is 400, blah, 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 blah. That's the image. I always like to check the container it's in as well, in case we've got anything in there. This width is grayed out, which means that width is being generated programmatically. And this, the container, must be the width of the window for it to be such a weird pixel count. So that means that 400 pixels is what's causing the problem there. And I suspect that if I were to make that something different, if I were to go and change that code, so let me edit that as HTML. Let's just do something really manual, like say, let's make it 20% of the overall width. And hopefully, there we go. Now you'll see there that I've forcibly made the width 20%, which should then resize it. Oh, it's not. Now it is definitely that picture, but I think what we probably need to do is we need to take the container that it's in and do something to that. Buddy, thank you. What's going on there? Buddy's added me in the Discord. Let me have a look. See what he's done there. Now, this is where you find out that I can't actually use Discord very well because I'm like a moron. And also, when I was a teacher, my students very much did use Discord. Oh, this is the actual question, is it? Oh, brilliant. Oh, that could work actually. So spooky buddy, which I think is probably you, buddy, is it saying set the width to 100%? And that could be the thing. Normally, what I find with CSS is that with the image itself, sometimes you don't get a lot of luck. But if you go one level up, so in this case, the row you were working on, Nathan, and put some constraints on the image size there, you might have some more control over that. It is spooky month, buddy. You're right. Yeah, it is spooky month. By the way, we are doing a teacher's pedagogy session on Halloween night itself. So I am tempted to dress up. So suggestions in the chat what a middle-aged bald chap can dress up at. That is scary. Thank you. It's not just me. The problem is, I think that Discord is a little bit overwhelming sometimes because I go on there and everyone's chatting at the same time, and it's an amazing place. It's brilliant. When I spend time going through it, I absolutely love it. But especially for somebody that grew up with, AIM, AOL Instant Messenger was the height of the instant messaging conversation technology when I was a young man. Seeing something like Discord, which is just 20x that, is a bit overwhelming at times. So Nathan, I'm sorry we didn't solve it live there, but I think the problem will be in that meta container, that row. So I think the important thing to do is to try and manipulate that, and it is going to be a width thing. That image is just not resizing. Let's see if we can get that container resizing. 100% width work, Nathan, fantastic. So buddy, well done. You can come here anytime and help me out with my problem solving, because clearly sometimes I just ain't any good at it. Now, interesting, that's one of the things I've always found quite difficult to debug live is CSS. I remember many years ago, I was helping out somebody I was doing some tutoring for a university course on website design. And sometimes we'd have CSS problems that would take 40, 50 minutes to fix, because CSS is lovely. CSS is fantastic. But sometimes trying to center align one element can be an hour's work, especially if it's not code that you've written yourself. But Nathan, I'm glad we fixed that. Fantastic. I am going to finish up in a few moments' time now. So about 5 minutes, we're going to. Oh, was it Bookie that helped? Well done, Bookie. Bookie interned with us for a while. He's brilliant, and also corrected my capitalization, which is very important. Oh, there's a good one. Is that much of a stretch though for a bald white man to dress up as Walter White? Like, it's just a beard, isn't it? For me, I don't know. But if that's what the voting's going for, that's what we'll go for. I'm not getting the yellow hazmat suit though. Sorry, not on my budget for Halloween this year. But good idea. Everyone's going to vote for Walter White now, aren't they? I can see it. Yeah, I'll set up let's get a poll set up on Discord. What can I dress as for Halloween? And we'll see how that's going. Very quickly, I do want to just point at some of the Discord questions that I have brought up, but I haven't had time to talk about just yet, because I do go through the Discord coding questions as well. Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, I appreciate that. Put it down as a business expense. Probably might have to be the case. I was forced, legally speaking, to dress up as Walter White this Halloween. Claim it on my taxes. The Discord code help is really, really great, especially if you've got some more advanced problems, because the people on the Discord oftentimes have some spectacular programming skills. But I want to talk about this one a little bit, because this is about a concept that people often have to learn about in introduction to programming courses. And the idea is building a cipher. Now, what a cipher is an ability to take text from readable text and taking each letter and moving it one or two in each direction so that the message comes out garbled. But if you know the cipher number, you can move it back. The classic one of these is a Caesar cipher, which is as old as Julius Caesar, so thousands and thousands of years, where you take a circle, write the alphabet around it, do that for another circle in the middle, and move it a number of positions. Now, this question is interesting because what's happening is Flying Cookie is trying to use the ORD code. Now, ORD, O-R-D here, is the ordinal value of a character. So what that means is it'll give us essentially, I'm going to say this, please feel free to point out if it's wrong, but essentially the ASCII value, the number of a particular character. Now, there is a problem with that if you're using that for cipher shifting. It's because the way in which we store alphabets in a computer system is not simple. The first, I can't remember the top of my head. I used to teach this all the time, but maybe the first 60 numbers are non-printable characters. They're things like commands to reset the printer, to make your computer beep. It's a bunch of stuff like that. Then we have the lowercase alphabet. Then we have the uppercase alphabet. So just getting the ordinal value of a letter and moving it left or right doesn't always do what you want it to do. And that's because it's not just moving it through a single alphabet, it's moving it through the entire ASCII set. Ramona, if you want to get on the Discord group, you're more than welcome to. There's an option from within Replit to do that. I'll show that in a second. If you just go to the hamburger button on the side and you scroll down, there's a link to the Discord there, and that will take you through getting into the Discord group. It's completely free and open to join, and it's a great place to go to meet and talk to people about coding, nerd out about all that sort of good stuff. And I mean that in the best way, because it is great. I sometimes lose hours of my life to just reading down some of the Discord threads. Going back to this question, though, on ordinals, the big problem with ordinals is it's not just the number of the letter in the alphabet, it is the number of the letter in the ASCII set or the Unicode set. So it's not just this, we're now looking at this. So when you're trying to move things back and forth, 1 character, 10 characters, 30 characters, you are jumping out of the main alphabet. And that mainly is the problem that we've got. So that's an interesting question, because that is, I mean, as a teacher myself, that is often one of the first big programs we get our students to work on, because it deals with a bunch of stuff. It deals with managing text. It deals with the idea of cryptography. And there's a bunch of learnings there that, as a teacher trying to teach a computer science course, I'd want them to do. But that ordinal function, although it's amazing, does cause problems. If you want a shorter version, you could just make a list that individually gives each letter, and then you could enumerate them that way. Using a modulo function, so that's the percent function, to loop it back from the end of the alphabet to the beginning of the alphabet as you go. In fact, we may even build one of those next week if we haven't got many other questions, but we seem to be doing all right for questions at the moment. We also had a bunch of questions for formatting and indentation. Now, one of the big issues when you're putting code into Discord, excuse me a second, I need to cough. Excuse me. One of the big problems you have when you're putting code into Discord is that it doesn't print it in a monospace font, and it doesn't always respect the indentation quite as well as it could. And you can see that here. Very difficult to debug a bit of code like this. The issue is with line 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the issue is with this code here. And the question is that the answer is put on the same line. Let's have a look. Oh no, it goes on to the next line. Well, interestingly, this is one of the things that we deal with in our work, is that in the 100 days of code, is how to do that. And the easiest way, as JT has said, is to use an F string, because by doing this stuff here, what you're actually doing with the input command is stuff that isn't allowed. Concatenation with the commas isn't something that's allowed in input. Input is a very, very poorly structured function that feels like print, but is not like print. In fact, input is a bit of an old-fashioned function and only takes in single arguments. So if you want to have something a bit nicer in the input command, you do have to use F strings. F strings is video 20-something of 100 days of code, or maybe 30-something. It might not even have been published yet, but certainly I do have 100 days of code video on F strings to help you with that sort of thing. So sometimes those problems are just the function doesn't work correctly with those sort of things in it. Again, please, the Discord is an amazing place to ask for coding help, and especially coding help that, you know, if you can't wait 2 weeks to have me look at it and scratch my big bald head and look confused, you can do that to people with a bit more hair by putting it in the Discord. And they are very, very good. Our Discord community is amazing for helping each other out and having a look and having a chat about the sort of coding things that are going on. Oh, Nathan has said you can actually add code with syntax. Is it the same way as we do it in Slack, Nathan? Well, let's have a go. So if I were to put some code in here, I'm going to use 3 of these to start with. Just put an int in there. Oh, there we go. So these, I'll just zoom in a little bit. So hopefully you can see what I've typed in. That's not going to zoom in much more than that. But what I've typed in are actually, when you're in Discord, I think it's Markdown syntax, Nathan. You might be able to correct me or tell me if I'm wrong, but the Markdown syntax is the angled quotes. So on most keyboards, you're going to find this down towards the bottom left somewhere, close to your Z key. Certainly Macs, they are in that position. And it's, I'll put it in the chat actually, so you can see what it looks like, but it's one of those. And this used to give us, when we went, in the school I worked at, we went to iPads for everyone. And for maybe the first day, this was an absolute nightmare, because by default, iPads changed straight quotes, which we need for programming, into these guys, which gets the program confused. Luckily in Discord, if you wrap code either around one of those, or I think maybe three might be a code block, you get the output turned into code. And then when you submit that, it's a lot easier for people to read. So do try that if you're in the Discord and you want to get that stuff in there. Well, We've been an hour every 2 weeks. Doesn't seem like an awful lot for having this much fun, but there we go. Thank you, everyone that participated in the live stream. Nathan, thank you for rocking up and asking me a CSS question. But I'm glad we managed to fix it for you. And thanks to Buddy and thanks to Bookie for helping out there. Thanks for everyone else that's been bringing questions in. Please do tell your friends, tell everyone if they've got programming questions. I'm gonna have to bring this up a minute because there's a bit of a comedy situation here. Thank you, Nathan, for this. I need to let everyone know that in the UK, we write our dates differently to in the US. We do day, month, and year. So today at Replit headquarters, I've had a lovely party, a lovely birthday cake. It's not my birthday. I put the numbers in the UK way when I was putting things in. So thank you for saying happy birthday. I'm going to call this my American birthday, but it's not actually my birthday today. It's just a miscommunication between UK and American date formats. But thank you very much, everyone, for wishing me American birthday. I'm going to celebrate this now every year, especially. Please do share this. Please do let people know. Replit 101 is for you guys. It's for people that have coding questions, whether you're a new coder or you're an experienced coder. Whether you can give me a question I can answer or a question that I have to desperately ask the live audience to see if they can answer. That's what it's for. The more people that come to these live sessions, the more fun we can have, the more problems we can solve in that hour. Now, I'll be live again in 2 weeks' time on this same date, same day. And we'll be taking your questions again. We'll be looking through ask.replit.com. We'll be looking through the Discord programming questions section and picking up the questions that we can help with. Until then, if you've got any questions that I desperately need to answer, ask.replit.com and the Discord are the places where you need to go. Now, I'm going to go. I wish you guys a great rest of the day wherever you are, and I hope that you find all the success in your coding that you need. Bye.